to the Unmuted Podcast. It's your boy, Pastor Stevie, joined with Pastor Ron and Pastor Leroy. Fellas, how you guys doing today, man? What's going on?
Great, man.
Yep, good over here, man.
This cold weather, though. But let's go to Florida and record next week.
Hey, you say the word. I'll book a flight right now.
He paid for the trip. We gone.
That's right. Yeah.
Just make sure this doesn't count. This is not vacation time.
Yeah, no, we ain't getting knocked for nothing.
Yeah.
It's ministry.
Ministry work.
Just talking to a woman whose husband has a little light plane. He flies down there.
Hey, let's do it. I'm down. Let's do it, bro. Yeah, because, hey, man, I got to go to Arizona, which I'm pretty hyped about because it's going to be super hot out there next month. So, but yeah, and you're going to Florida too, right?
Going to Florida, yeah. A couple weeks.
It's hot out there, right? Or no?
It's 80s.
That's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
Down here is like 35, bro. Killing me. Okay, so
it's 28 degrees this morning.
Dude, yeah, you tell me about it. Okay, so I wanted to talk about just the election because obviously this is one of the. Well, I've only lived through like 2 elections. I've only voted twice, so who am I to talk, right? Would you guys say this is the craziest election that you guys have seen, or no?
Yeah, I think the craziest one was 2016 when I went to bed thinking Hillary Clinton had won, and woke up and Trump had won. I think that was the craziest because even from what I've heard, Trump didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah, nobody thought he was going to win.
And so, I mean, you're the guy that's run, spent all this money, and I didn't win. I'm going to bed. So it was crazy from the standpoint, I think, that people were so politically divided on this one compared to all the rest.
Yep. Yeah.
But there's been some crazy elections, but this one. Ooh,
I've definitely this
can't
one,
be neutral.
This one, I have definitely seen where what you said, the divide is different, and just personally, like just the way people are coming at other people is just different than in the past.
Yeah, so
not that people didn't have their own views and all that, but it's a different level on this one.
Yeah, so in house we were always talking about who we thought was going to win. Pastor Ron at first said Kamala, and then obviously his mind changed because just seeing just where just the people's focus is where going. Trump, like from the stats, it looked like Trump was winning the majority rule, and he did win. So we live in a pretty wild time. But I really wanted to talk about just the election and just where do we go from here as Christians, because there's been a lot of nastiness in the Christian community with kind of boosting political figures from the pulpit, and the preaching has been nasty. And then at the same time, I do think a lot of Christians have become politically literate. And I say that because I do feel like there was a time where Christians weren't they felt like they were holier than thou to care about politics because God's on the throne. And the reality is that's, if we go to scripture, Abraham even helped the kings as well. You know what I mean? So it's almost every biblical figure was involved in government in some form of, fashion. So I am happy that, a lot of Christians care about laws and policies and all of that stuff. But Leroy, I wanted to start with you because you did get into a little political spat online. Which shocked me. And not gonna lie, and I'm gonna be completely honest here. I expected you to cook the person that commented. I was like, yo, Leroy, because you had the perfect setup, but you didn't do it. Which is honestly probably the best option.
He's a lot nicer than
exactly, because I would have demolished off the rip. Bro, whenever I post something like controversial, I have responses already docked up. But anyways, can you just talk about your post and just what some of the opposing comments was? Because I do feel like there was a misunderstanding of what your post actually was. So please just.
So my post was actually saying to us as believers, hey, our political views shouldn't, be put out there to the point of nastiness like you were just talking about. And I said if you're a believer and you're on the side of I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican and you're bashing other people for what they choose or any of that, where's your heart at? Check your heart, because your heart's not right. And that was kind of what my post was saying. I kept seeing all these believers that I know are believers putting their political views and why this person sucks, why that person sucks. And it's we ain't got time for that. Why are we as believers putting that out there right now? It doesn't make any sense. So then other people, I don't know if they're believers or not. They might be, they may not be. But they took it as me saying I was for a certain candidate. And I'm looking at my thing and I'm like, I never said once what candidate, what side I was on. I never even said anything about what political policies I liked. So there was some confusion there, and then other people commented on my thing. Like some people were, went back at that person that said whatever they said, and 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 then I wound up having a private conversation with that person saying, "Hey, this is where I was coming from."
Yeah.
And of course we settled it and it was fine after that. But I don't want to be on the side of like my policies or the policies I believe in should hold you to this, and I'm gonna not like you because of that. Like,
yeah,
never want to be like that. Like, that's not the way we should be.
For sure. So Pastor Ron, like, how did you feel during this whole political time? Like, what is your what is your viewpoint coming out of this? Because you are obviously way more versed than Leroy and I. I'm only 25. And
I've been through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You went through a few elections, and I know you have some people like that are your friends that are in politics. So, and I'm more than sure you probably been asked to run before, right? Because you're Pastor Ron.
He's been asked to run.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been asked to run campaigns.
Yeah,
for people.
Facts. Yeah. So, what was your from a pastoral shepherd perspective? How do you feel about all this stuff that happened? Like, are you disappointed? Are you happy? Like, what is your pastoral heart on this?
Well, I think prior to the election, and you guys heard me say this even from the pulpit, is that I don't want to see any of our people posting negative, abusive Facebook, Instagram, whatever, post about politics. Mm-hmm. You can have your personal opinion. You can champion your guy. You can go out and campaign for your person. But don't use it as an attack mode towards other people. And I didn't get any pushback on that because in our church, we have people that voted Democrat. Yeah. I know some of them. We had people that voted Republican, probably some that didn't vote at all because they were too frustrated. But I think we've got to we got to do what Jesus did. What did Jesus do? Jesus lived in a culture when Rome was pro-abortion, anti-woman, immorality prevalent throughout the entire empire. The emperor was just a horrible person, and Jesus never addressed that.
Yep.
He said, "Render unto Caesar things of Caesar,
yep.
God the things of God." He did call Herod a fox though one day, but but he said, "Tell that old fox." But
that's because he was a fox.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that we're not supposed to address political issues. What it means is, I think we've got to have the spirit of Jesus when we do it, because all it does is when I attack you in your position as a Christian, then it automatically makes everybody go, Christians are that. Yep. Mm-hmm. And they miss the Jesus that we're supposed to be representing because of our talk, our behavior, our attitude. Yeah. And so I think we can have our personal opinion, we can have our campaign, we can campaign for our candidate. We had people in our church that had children, some of our adults that had children that were running for political office on the Democrat side.
Yeah.
We had people in here that had run on the Republican side.
Yeah.
And yet we went through a church year of contentiousness, the last 110 days especially, and we survived it, and we're unified because we chose to adopt the Spirit of Christ. And I think that's the key.
Exactly. And, I wholeheartedly agree because I do feel like discourse and debate is good for society.
Yeah.
I think just thinking about the Tower of, Babel, God doesn't want the world to unite. I mean, if the world unites and it's not because of Jesus, that's contention to God, and He's going to have to make something happen. You know what I mean?
Key right there.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so, and that's why, when a lot of Christians were saying, the fear was that, the LGBT and all these people were going to unite and that God was going to strike us. I'm like, yeah, but you can't use Tower of Babel because the whole world united, as one to want to be as great as God, right? So, with that being said, I think discourse is great and amazing. I also think that a lot of Christians were kind of afraid to state how they feel because they felt like they were going to offend people. And I do also believe that as a Christian, the gospel is offensive with or without us preaching it or saying it, and a lot of people are going to take it, the wrong way based on some things, that we stand for as Christians. But I have been pondering this idea of and this is what I wanted to kind of bring to you guys, is it wrong by any means for Christians to want to policy watch biblical values onto people that don't believe in them? Like, does that go against God's way or does it not? You know, because I was reading a bunch of tweets like on X, and that was what a lot of Christians were saying. Like, some that didn't vote, they felt uncomfortable saying like, I feel like I am voting policies that I stand for, but I feel like I'm forcing people that don't believe in what I believe in to follow that. What would you guys say to that?
Hey, look, it's never worked to try to legislate morality.
Yep.
Never. Look, the people that started our country came over with strong religious convictions, and they regulated strictly what people could and couldn't do because they wanted to develop the city on the hill, you know, the new Jerusalem in America.
Yep.
Well, they didn't last very long.
No, not at all.
You know, and nobody liked
we
it.
always
Nobody
changing
liked
policies.
them.
We still changing policies.
Yeah,
now.
and then or even John Calvin, you know, he tried to make his city to be this perfect because of the law. He thought, if I can just get the law and people to obey the law, the biblical law, we'll have the perfect paradise on earth in our city. That didn't work well.
Yeah,
you know, it still fell apart because the thing is, until you change the heart, you're going to get flesh.
Yep.
So when I try to legislate my morality as a Christian on a non-Christian, my spirit is speaking to their flesh because they don't have the same spirit as I do. Therefore, I can't legislate my morality upon a non-Christian.
Exactly.
Okay? I can call them to Christ. I'd much rather introduce them to Jesus, who will change their heart. Then my spirit can talk to their spirit.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. That's why my post was my post. It was literally that.
Yeah.
You ain't going to change nobody by your politics and how you see things, and you know, because you're for abortion or not for abortion. Nobody is going to change their opinion based off that. They're only going to change their opinion based off of who you are and how you're living for God and seeing that heart that you have for Christ.
Yeah.
Your walk is the light to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I also agree, and like, you know, like some of my friends that are saved, they've gone on Instagram to, you know, like debate people and stuff, and you know, one of my friends, they like they were going off about Trump in our little sports group chat, and they were asking me how come you're not trying to fight the political fight, you know? And I said, bro, like, I'm just another talking head if I go and tell what I, you know, believe in. People know where, like, the people that are close to me, the people that know me, they know where I stand, but I want to be known more for being a disciple of Jesus, you know? And I agree with everything that you guys said. Like, the heart change is more important than a political vote. You know what I mean? And as a shepherd, as a pastor, it is our jobs to, you know, make sure that people are turning to Christ, you know, in times like these. So to get to the main point of this episode, like, where do Christians go from now? You know, what is the next step for us as Christians? Because, you know, for a lot of Christians, you know, people are like, yeah, we won. We are back, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I'm back.
Yeah, I'm back, baby. Like, I'm back. But then on the other side, like, there are Christians that believe that we have lost, you know, and they're like, dang, like, this sucks, you know? I didn't vote for Trump, and, you know, like, I wanted Kamala, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the centerpiece where they didn't vote at all, where they're like, yeah, America's doomed either way, you know? Yeah. So what is next for Christians? You know, like, what has God kind of spoken to you about, and what is Scripture also saying to you, and what us as Christians should do?
Yeah, I think for me, God just put on my heart, get back to the mission. Keep the main thing the main thing.
Yep.
What's the main thing? The church was never called in the book of Acts or any of Paul's epistles to go out and change the world politically. It was called to keep the main thing, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I think what God may be saying to the church right now, because we tried this before your time, but we tried this in the 80s with the whole, you know, coalition, the whole Francis Schaeffer thing, the whole anti-abortion movement, and we thought, you know, the religious right could change our nation. And it just made everybody mad.
Yep.
and the whole thing fell apart. So I think what God's been saying for a long time to the church is, get back to Jesus. Just get back to the simple message of Jesus. Because people are drawn to a person. They're not drawn to a policy.
Yep.
I think that's where he's got me right now.
Roy.
He got me on the same thing. He's saying, he's literally saying to me, this is what he's been saying recently, press in.
Press in? Yeah.
Press in. Time to press in. Press in as a leader, press in as a man, press in as a believer. press in, because like you said, the policies don't matter, the politics don't matter. Who are you assigned to help, and how are you going to help that person so that they can help somebody else, so that they can help somebody else? So then the world is changed, because the world ain't going to be changed through these politics. The world's going to be changed through us. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to.
I mean, think about this, right? John the Baptist and his whole ministry low-key went against the government of his time. But think about this. John the Baptist got arrested for speaking against the gay marriage to his brother's, to his sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. Like, think about the whole, John's whole entire ministry never got touched until he spoke out against politics. And I do think that there does come a time where we do have to speak out, and I think as a church we have. I really do think that we have done our due. Now, I don't think we're like other churches where we go on the pulpit and just spew our own personal opinions, but I feel for us as a pastoral team, it's been more a conversation where we've been trying to really have intentional convos about trying to educate people on policies and really about kind of what's just going on on our earthly world, right? Mm-hmm. But I do agree with what you guys are saying, and that's why I've been really trying to deeply study just the word more and more and more, because the reality is history is repeating itself over and over and over again. And Pastor Eric Mason preached about this, and he said that that we are coming to a remnant, and basically a remnant always happens after something bad happens. And I think that with COVID and the election, I really think God is opening up the door for us as Christians to really have an effect in the world. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people have lost hope with or without this, presidential election. Mm-hmm. And the question or the reality is, I think that a lot of people are realizing the political thing ain't working. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They put their whole lives behind these politics, and they're saying I still don't feel complete. And that's where us, as teachers of the word have to come in and say, this is why you don't feel complete, because you need Jesus, mm-hmm. right? And so
think about this. What if we woke up the Tuesday after the election and somehow the numbers changed and Harris won? What would that have changed about what the church is supposed to be doing? Nothing.
Yeah.
Not one thing.
Okay. There would have been a lot of disappointed people. there would have been a lot of, but think about that. No matter who won, the mission of the church stays the same.
That was literally about
It's when we get distracted by all this chaos and all this social media back and forth and all these endless conversations about, Trump did this and he's not a very good man, and, Harris doesn't have any experience, and then we get into name calling. Then we get distracted from the mission of the church. Mm-hmm. Jesus never got distracted. Paul never got distracted. He said, this one thing I do, I press, using your phrase, I press on for the sake of the gospel. And so whether you are Republican or independent or Democrat, you woke up Wednesday morning and your mission, Jesus was saying, report for duty.
Yeah. So the next question for you guys is how, because I feel like a lot of people's witness has been shattered because they've just gone just AWOL on the political spectrum. What would you say to the Christian, their witness to non-believers is just destroyed right now because they've just given into the political jargon and talk? What is the next step for that follower of Christ?
Yeah, I think be honest. I think go to your friend and say, look, the train went off the track.
Yeah,
and I apologize for being a jerk, regardless of what position that you took.
Yeah,
and because my heart for you is that the Jesus that lives inside of me. Mm-hmm. Hey, could I have another chance to talk to you about him?
Yep.
I think that's what, if it's that kind of situation, I think that's what they would do.
Yeah. I agree with him. I also think, like you said, maybe, I guess it'd be the same as you. Like, you got to kind of apologize, repent, all that type of stuff. But you also got to start trying to work back to that relationship, like he said, to where, regardless, even if that person doesn't forgive you, you got to work back to that relationship, or at least work back to amending that relationship. You know what I mean? To a certain extent, like if you can apologize all day long, but if that person doesn't want to accept your apology, you still got a duty to work on that person, helping that person get forgive you or whatever the case may be, so that they're not holding that against you, because we all make mistakes, and you can make a mistake at any moment. You know, it's about what you do once you do make that mistake, how you get back to where you're supposed to be, you know, so.
Let me give you a quick story, Stevie. Back when HIV became such a ravaging disease back in the 80s, and nobody really knew how you got it. I mean, we knew it was from sex, but there was things going around. I remember a piece of paper going around saying if an HIV-infected person sits on a toilet and you sit on it, you could get AIDS, you know. Okay. So churches were going nuts. What do we do? And we had a guy that was HIV infected that came to our church. This is when I was in Orlando, and some of my people were like, wow, we can't have that because we still don't really know how you catch it.
Yeah.
And so I faced a decision. I lost some people over it because I welcomed that person. Now, I didn't agree with his lifestyle. I didn't agree with his politics. I didn't agree with his moral choices. Mm-hmm. But he's a sinner that Jesus died for.
Yep.
And I went to him one day and I said, I apologize for how some of my people have treated you. I want you to know Jesus will never treat you like how some of us have. And if we would take that attitude, maybe it's not apology, maybe we would just say, Jesus would never treat you like how some Christians have. Christians can be jerks just like anybody
else. Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
But let me tell you how Jesus will treat you, and then point them back to Christ.
100%. I mean, and that's the heart of the early church, you know. And there's obviously a time for rebuke, but and this is the other thing too that a lot of Christians miss, is that a lot of the aggression that happens in the New Testament is to the body of Christ. It's to a Christian to another Christian, you know.
Yep.
Like when that guy questions Paul's teaching, and in 2 Corinthians they literally oust him. Like, that was a follower. That was someone in their family. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so sometimes, like, a lot of Christians, like, we misinterpret scripture to push our political narrative to be so mean to people. And, like, the people in Corinth were able to be as ruthless with each other because they knew each other, because they were family, because there was a relationship, you know, that was there. And plus, you know, when you view your life through the eyes of the gospel, we get away with a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine the times where we have mistreated someone, and because they believe in the gospel, they were able to forgive us and move on. But with a non-believer, man, you that relationship might be smoked.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Might be done.
And so as a follower of Christ, you have to be careful, you know, about your witness towards other people, because I do think God is going to hack us about some of the people that we've ran off because we've given into some of the worldly politics or some of the worldly, you know, jargons. So, all right, in the closing, because we are almost getting to the end of the episode here, what has you guys' prayer been for the future of the church in this next like era that we are going into? You know, what have you really been seeking God about? You know, like, what do you want to see in the next 5 to 10 years throughout the church?
Yeah, I think we got to get back to making Jesus famous. You know, we've made pastors famous, we've made mega churches famous, we've made denominations famous. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's time we make Jesus famous.
Yeah,
and famous not from a celebrity standpoint, but famous from that's all we talk about. Yep. That's who we elevate. Mm-hmm. That's who we introduce people to. You know, we went through a stage back 25, 30 years ago where we just said, you know, you got to come to church. You know, we built churches, but we built churches that weren't built on Jesus. We built churches full of people that weren't built on Jesus. And I think if we just, Stevie, get people introduced Jesus, man, who doesn't want Jesus? I mean, think about this for a moment.
Yeah. Jesus
died for their sin. Jesus is that shepherd, that tender, that compassion. Jesus is everything that we want a human God person to be.
Yep.
Who would get ticked off being around Jesus? Let's get back, I think in the next 5-10 years, if we can get back to just simply showing people Jesus.
100%.
I think it'd be a turning point.
100%.
I mean, if my people humble themselves, he will heal their land.
Yeah,
true.
That's where we at.
Yeah.
We got to humble ourselves, man. We as believers, and that's my prayer, that we will humble ourselves so that God can heal our land. It comes down to that. And it's what he just said. We gotta make Jesus the main thing. We gotta know he's the main thing, and we gotta let him heal our land.
Yeah.
So anything else is gonna fall. It's gonna fail, man. So
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I think that the best example of church is the early church, 100%. You know, I think that's the best time that we probably had of unity to a degree. And I think that one of the things that kept the early church united was the fact that they all disagreed on, you know, certain doctrine and certain theologies and stuff, but they all had one common thing, was that they were bowing at the feet of Jesus Christ. And I think that the ascension of people has divided us more than anything, and that's what politics have showed me also, is that a lot of people replace their gods depending on the years. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people will say they support a politician and use Christianity to be that thing, you know, but it's really not. And I see the future as pastors. Number one, I think a lot of pastors are going to be very more educated in a lot of worldly stuff like policies and stuff like that, because I think people have a lot of questions that need to be answered, which I have seen you both gain knowledge in a wild way. But also, I think that the Bible needs to be taught more. And I think that people have to understand that this has happened before. Let's read how Christians before us responded. Let's do that.
Yep.
Because I think that sometimes we can try to find so many new ways to do things. And I love creativity and doing new things. But when it comes to dealing with people, it's never changed on how to do it. It's never changed. And Jesus laid the perfect blueprint to do that. And you brought up the whole thing when they were asking, like, yo, who do we give our taxes to? So Tim Keller, loved Tim Keller. He spoke for a whole 2 hours on that passage. Yeah. And the one thing that he said,
only Tim Keller can do. Yeah.
only Tim Keller can take one story and talk about 2 hours. But the one thing that he said is that Jesus, it wasn't just about taxes. They were asking Jesus, what revolutionary are you going to be? Because he said there were a lot of people that came in the name of God before him, but they rebelled against the king. And that's why, you know, following God at that time didn't last. But they said Jesus lasts forever because Jesus will sit with sinners, rebuke the Pharisees, and in the same breath tell the people to pay the king what is due to him. And they said, like, you can't come at Jesus at that point. He's right and he's just.
And he was, as you just said something, he wasn't just talking to the Pharisees. He was talking to the people next to the Pharisees, because there was a whole crowd of people there. People missed that a lot. He was talking to everybody around there so that they understood the standard. So they knew, you know, this is what it really means. Like, you got to pay Caesar what Caesar's, but you got to give God what is God's. You know, and he was saying more than just money. If you trust God, you go all in with God.
Exactly. And Jesus challenged each of them differently. He challenged his disciples in a way that he didn't challenge the Pharisees. You know, he challenged a non-believer. Like, I mean, he told that rich man, leave everything and follow me. I mean, not as aggressive as the way he would talk to a Pharisee, you know? So we have to understand the people that we are dealing with and how to approach them and really just put the gospel first. That's kind of where I'm at this point.
And I would conclude by saying this. I think for a lot of us that are in our industry, pastors, church leaders, we don't spend very much time with spiritually disconnected people.
Facts.
And I think if we knew if we knew the true questions that people are asking and the true heart that they're asking it in, we might be a little bit more compassionate. We may not be quite as reactionary, quite as attacking, quite as just being jerks sometimes, if we really understood the hearts of people. But we got to be around people. And what did Jesus do? Jesus was around people. Zacchaeus, what are you doing up in that tree? Matthew, hey, quit collecting taxes and come, let's have a party. That's what Jesus did. Said it with the woman at the well in Samaria. Jesus hung around lost people. As I often say, Jesus ate good food with bad people. And that's how he kept his heart knit. John 2, the very last verse says, and Jesus said, John records that Jesus said, and he knew what was in the hearts of men. How did he know that? Well, he's Jesus, but also he spent time with people that were not stuck in an office, not in a church service. And I think if we can get back to that, if we'll spend the next 5-10 years doing that, building those relationships with people, like you were saying, hearing their heart. I read a study the other day that said, what are young people asking for today? And the study said they're not looking for more content. They're looking for somebody to listen to them. And that was the takeaway from the Democratic laws. They didn't listen to people. At least this is their own Democratic advisor saying, this is what you didn't do. You didn't listen to people. You gave them content, but you didn't give them an opportunity to share their heart. And so let's really listen to people. But at the same time, let's just not listen and be passive. Then let's say, hey, can I tell you about what's in my heart? Yep. I've enjoyed hearing your heart. Let me tell you what's in my heart, and then present Jesus to them.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, what a great word, man. So yeah, guys, I mean, that's kind of where we are at this point, man. Like, look, the election's over, but guys, it's time to, and even during the election, this was all of our hearts, but the gospel has to go forth no matter what, and we can't let someone in office dictate that either way. And the day that we let someone in office dictate us telling the gospel to somebody, we then have lost our way. Yeah. So we're going to end the podcast there. Please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.